Okay guys, hey, Steve here, Blade Scrounger. A little bit about sheaths today and reinforcing sheaths. One of the weak points of just about any sheath is this attachment point for the belt loop. Over time what can happen is the knife can actually come in and cut these threads. And if that happens, it starts to unravel, and now you're left with a mess because basically it's almost impossible to redo the stitching without taking the whole the whole sheath back down. So you'd have to cut out your stitching, redo this stitching, redo that stitching. It's a pain. So what we're going to go into today a little bit is about how to reinforce with rivets. And that's the only thing we're going to discuss today. It's just a tip. So every once in a while I'm going to show you some sheath making tips. This is the first one. And we'll go from there. So getting to our subject, here's what happens. So I just let these lines run out because this is going to be reversed. And as you can see, it's going to sit something like this. Okay, so now we're establishing where we want it, but it's too proud, it's too thick. This is called a skiving tool. It's got a slightly rounded blade that sits in it. And I know I'm going to probably want to skive out this section and thin it out so that this leather isn't full thickness. So what I usually do when I'm doing this is I'll start with the side and I'll just pick a point where and I'll put more pressure on and just pull that piece right off. Okay, so I've thinned down one side. I'm going to tilt the tool in the opposite direction, come up to the same point, and do it again. So this one could probably just be touched up a little more. That's perfect. Okay, so now I've got two edges that are thinner and they thin out as they come to the point. However, the middle is still full thickness to about here. So I'll take the skiving tool and I'll just take that out. Okay, so where we're at this point is laying this out for where I want the belt loop to come. And let me grab the knife that's going in this one. And so it's, it's going to ride about there. And that's what I want. I want it slightly out of the sheath, enough so you can grab onto it, pull it out, and extract it. But I want this belt loop higher than the top of, the scales. So, all right. So let's lay this thing out. And really quick, all I'm going to do is grab a needle for right now. I know that if I come in straight like this, what's going to happen is the belt loop is going to look crooked. It really has to tilt in towards the outside. And this fold over area is higher than this side. And so that hides the stitching that we're about to put in. So let's get it marked out where we want it. That's pretty good. Okay, so now I know here I am. This is the general area. And all I need to do is, I usually just take a razor blade and I'll kind of just scratch this finished veg tan surface because the adhesive that I use has to have a base to stick to. I'm using a contact adhesive, and so what I do is basically I just raise the grain of this area. And you don't have to, be deep, and you don't have to go crazy. You just need to get enough in there removed so that basically you're adhering, when you stick the contact cement from one side onto the other, and you'll get a good bond. So, like I said, not crazy. Try to color within the lines because anything that goes out of the lines is going to stain differently. And my next point is to, okay, we're done. My next point with this would be to say, make sure that you don't really take your glue to the outside edges. Okay, keep it in a little bit, because when you get a little bit of an area that goes beyond the edge, you go to stain it, say a dark brown, it's going to show. It's going to look whitish. So really don't want that. Okay, so let's get the adhesive out. In this case, I am just using good old Weldwood contact cement. And the way I like to apply it is with a Q-tip. So let's get started. So all I do is I basically dip the end of the Q-tip in, keep it moving in a circle, and I'll start right in the very middle of this and work my way to the outside, just painting it in. Make sure it's not dripping on your work. Great. Okay, and that's all there is to it. So that's going to take about 15 minutes to dry. And the way contact cement works is you do both sides. So this is the other side, and I don't have to worry about staying between the lines so much here. The way it works is when both sides are dry, you know, almost to the point where you can't feel any tackiness at all, you can stick them together and they bond instantly. So what we're going to do is take a little break, come back in about 15 minutes, and we'll flip this on to the other side where I've got it marked out, and then I'll show you the next step of getting it laid out for stitching for one, and two, we're going to set some rivets after that. So stay with me. And magically some different tools have appeared. These are stitch line markers. This set happens to be 4mm, and as you notice, there's a single prong, 2-prong, 4-prong, and then a 6-prong. And the reason for that is radiusing. So what's going to happen is we're going to lay this puppy over and just press her down where I want her. Give it a little pressure, and that's it. She's stuck. So that's the beauty of the contact cement. So I'm not going to bother laying out because I'm just going to eyeball this. It's such a small space, so I'm not going to lay out for it. So let's get started. So I'm going to use a single prong about, let's call it 3/16 of an inch back from the edge right here. And just make a quick punch. Now you want to make sure that your square, I should say, you're perpendicular with your punch on the single. Okay, so why do I do that? Well, as I start making these radiuses, I'll go over to the 2. And just kind of hold it, just eyeball it and keep it away from the edge, just equidistant. And now this is where it really starts to turn. So, okay, why did I do the single? Well, I'll end up, if I use the same tool coming up the sides, at the same height. One side won't be higher than the other. So, it makes sense a lot of times when you're doing your layout. The best way is to start at the center at the bottom and work your way up to where you end. Because if you do it in reverse, who knows where you're going to end up. You may be off a whole space. So we're going to do this really quick and just get it out of the way, get it marked so it can be auled out. And so there's the 2. I'm going to go to the 3. Actually, I think I'm just going to go right up to the full baby here, the 6. And I'm going to come across so I'm staying equal. I don't get kind of screwed up here. And one more. Oop, get a little off there. It happens. It'll disappear though because it's the rough outside. All right, that looks good. A little higher, one higher. Let's get you right in there where I want you. Okay. One of the things you want to avoid is coming straight across. And the reason you want to avoid that is it puts all the tension and pressure on this and forms a joint, and over the years that's the only thing that's working. The rest of this is there, but it's not really doing much. So when I was making bags, shop bags, one of the first things they taught me was never come straight across on a strap. Fastest way, you know, there is to have a failure down the road. So, all right, so what I like to do is come diagonally. And I'm just going to lay this out quickly. And I know I'm going to reinforce this with a rivet. So I'm just going to lay that out really light. Make sure things line up. Okay, got to come up a little bit. Right about there. Okay, there's one. Connect the dots. There's two. The rivets in this case, as you can see, one is at the very bottom down here and one is above. Well, this one's actually now taking a lot of the stress off of, you know, the stitching. So let's just lay these out. Very simply, I'm going to come up a little bit from the bottom. That's one point. And closer. Let's say right there. Okay. So I have a machine that's set up in my dungeon, my shop. And I'm going to go downstairs right now and just punch these out. Basically get everything ready for stitching. But I'll set these two rivet holes, and next time you see this, we're probably going to be on a piece of heavy steel, and I'll have the rivets, and we're going to set them. And everything at that point's ready for stitching and reinforcement. So, okay, gang, we're back, and here we go. So everything's auled out, and all I do is I use a slightly under 1/8 inch drill bit on a drill press, and I've taken the point area to my belt grinder that I make knives with, and I've taken an area about probably 3/4 of an inch long and just spun the tip of the bit into the grinder so it comes to a point. Does a lovely job on all my punching of, you know, leather holes, and you know, it just makes life easy to do it on a drill press instead of trying to sit there and ruin your hands, you know, forcing, you know, something like this all in to each slot. So we also, right here, we've punched out 2 holes, and it's for the rivets, and we're going to put them in. So basically, this is the side that I want on the interior, because it's going to be slightly recessed into the leather when I punch it in, and doesn't protrude, and it can't really do much to the knife. Can't scratch it because it's copper, it's softer than the metal, but you know, it's nice to have it recessed a little bit so the knife just glides by it. So, okay, let's see if we can get these babies lined up and in. There we go. Oh. Yep, there we go. This first one. First one's in place. And the second one's in place. So as you can see, these are going to be totally flat, or if not, slightly recessed into the leather. This little guy is called an anvil, and it comes with a set that includes a rivet setter and a rounder. Which we're going to use every bit of. So Tandy Products carries it. They're not terribly expensive. I think they're under $20 still. The rivet bags are about $6 for the little ones, and you get up into some of the bigger bags, and you know they're $32. So, but a small bag of rivets probably last you through quite a few knives. I think there's 50 rivets or 100 rivets to the bag. So why the big block of steel? Well, I don't want things bouncing around. I want to have, you know, a solid surface. In my shop, I've got a monster piece of solid steel cast surfacing block. And I usually use that, but because I'm up in the space above my dungeon, I'm trying to, you know, just give you enough so you can see what happens here. So, okay, so what happens is I'm going to place this on top of this. Now, I tend to use, this is concave and this is flat. I tend to use the concave side because I think it kind of drives it in better into the leather instead of the flat, which kind of, then it just doesn't really round it at all. So all you do is you place your piece on top, take the rivet washer, for lack of a better word, and the riveting tool. You're going to use the hole and place it over the rivet's end, and as you can see, it's driven in. So we're going to do that again. Same thing, place this on top. Make sure we're using this rivet hole. You can actually hear it, the last strikes are getting louder, and that's letting you know that it's set. So, now we're too proud. This is sticking out, oh, good 1/4 of an inch. We don't want that. I mean, what we want to do is trim it. So we're just going to take a set of nips and cut it as flush as we can with the nips, which leaves it about, less than a 1/16 proud. Okay, so once again, we're going to set that on top of the anvil, centered on it. This little guy, it's hard to see, I'm hoping you can see it, is the doming side. So what it does is it basically allows you to peen over the end of the rivet. So you place the doming side now on top, and I tend to move it left, right, a lot of light hits. Nice. So that's flushed it up pretty good. It's rounded over too. So now we've got to move this on top of that. Get onto the doming head again. Make sure I'm on that right. I think I am. That's it, guys. We've got 2 rivets. You can see they're nice and flush. And so all that's left for me to do now is just run my stitch line. And usually I take a grooving tool and I do recess all of the stitching. So it's actually below the line of the leather. That helps a little bit with this problem of, you know, knives sometimes cutting it, you know, cutting the stitching line. So that'll recess it down, and I'll also hammer it after it's all stitched, and I'll also seal it. So I do everything I can to prevent that failure. But in the event of the failure, these 2 rivets are going to take care of you. Okay, gang, that's it for this one. It's tips and tricks for, you know, leather making and sheath making, and I hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to an episode soon. Hey, everybody have a good day.